So I did not get a video of the initial drawing process, but I just drew it with pencil, and then I collaged in a bit of a page out of an Alice in Wonderland book. At this point, I had done a stencil with DecoArt Medium Mister. It's a spray. It dries permanently though, so that gives me the option to be able to put more layers over it and not lose my initial stencil design. Now I'm incorporating some more of that same mister throughout the background of the piece, just getting color in. I saturated it quite a bit. I wanted the paint to move on its own and work its own magic. And I'm also letting it drip. I love the look and feel of drips, and I just like to let the paint do as it will. Now I'm using a Andy Skinner stencil and some modeling paste with a palette knife. Just scrape the modeling paste onto the stencil, and then while the modeling paste is wet, remove the stencil. Immediately wash it in warm water though, or you will ruin your stencil. Now I started working on the face, and I believe I'm using a Dynaflow and also some Golden High Flow and DecoArt Media Fluid acrylics on the face. And I went with a blue tone because I wanted it to be blue. I felt like that gave it a little bit more magic and made it a little bit more mystical and Alice in Wonderland-y. So that's why I have a blue face. I just do a bunch of layers on the face and just keep working it until it's at a place where I like it. Now I had to speed the video up quite a bit because what you're watching is actually hours and hours worth of footage that I have edited down and then also sped up so that it could be within a reasonable time frame. I don't know of anyone who'd want to watch me paint for hours on end. So just keep working it up, adding darks where it makes sense, and just building layers upon layer. I haven't let it dry so far, I'm just still working. Now while I'm working on the face portion of the painting, the modeling paste on the left hand side is having a chance to dry. So again, I don't have to stop at all, I can just keep going. Now I decided to give the face a rest, and I moved on to working on the dress. Just adding in some blues. I think that was a phthalo blue from Golden. And now I'm mixing a little bit of the two to lighten the blue up a little bit, and I'm going to put it on the collar of her dress. Start it a little bit darker, and then while the paint's still wet, you can start incorporating some titanium white, and it will lighten it up. And then I went right back to the face and did a little bit more with it once it had had some time to dry. And then the bow, the same blue and titanium white. Bringing in a little bit more titanium white on the collar to lighten it up some more. And back again on the face. I'm adding some more darks to the face. The darker the dark, the more it'll make your brights brighter. And with that I use Payne's Gray. For the hair I used Deco Art Media Fluid Acrylic in Burnt Umber. And then I'm going to also bring in some Dynaflow Yellow. And the Dynaflow is called Sun Yellow. It's very thin but super pigmented, so I really like to use it. Bring in a little bit more Burnt Umber to darken it up and add some interest. Hair isn't ever just one flat color. Once you have Burnt Umber in and the yellow, you can also add in some white for some white highlights. And just keep working up the hair just like the face. Just keep going until you like what you're looking at. Adding in some acrylic paint on the eyes, a little bit more on the bow, and back to the eye again. Kind of jump around all over the painting, incorporating a color, because that's how I keep the painting cohesive. And here I'm using a acrylic paint marker that I filled with a golden high flowing carbon black, and I'm just outlining. There I'm going to outline the bow, work on the flowers again. And I have some more Dynaflow to incorporate on the background, darken it up a little bit. That Dynaflow is called Midnight Blue. Here I'm going to bring in some reds and a fluorescent pink. I'm going to start painting the flowers. Whenever I'm painting, I don't really think a lot of, is this going to ruin anything? Because I've already painted it up to this point. I can paint it again if there's something that I don't like. Something can always be covered. Very, very rarely is a piece just ruined to the point of having to throw it away. There's always a way back. Now I added in some of that same red from the flowers into the mouth. For the mouth, I don't know that you can tell in the video, but I use a darker for the top lip, and then I use a lighter on the bottom lip. And I'm also adding in very watered down red on the cheeks for some blush. And bringing in some teal, letting it drip. And then to add a little bit more detail to the eyes, I like to use colored pencils. These are Prismacolors. I like working with them because they're very blendable. I think it allows me to get a lot more detail in the eyes than just using acrylic paint alone. Now it was time to bring in some more work to the face. When you've had time to look at something for too long, you decide that it needs more. Okay, and here I'm bringing in some white highlights around in the hair, and also a little bit in the eyes and face. Again, working all over the piece. And I thought I needed a little bit more in the background, so I'm bringing in some more color back there. And even more color. Again, that darker background I think is what's going to make Alice pop out. Now I took some carbon black on my brush and I just did a border around the piece. And I used a graphite pencil to accentuate a few features on the face and add in a little bit of an eyebrow. Just did a simple eyebrow, I didn't go into detail with it. That is a gelato. It's like a creamy, almost wax. And then that is a Sharpie water-based pen in fluorescent pink, and I just used it to add a few highlights throughout the face and flowers. And then a Uniball Signo white pen for some finer white highlights throughout the face and eyes. And just finishing up the piece with some white highlights. It allows me to get a very thin pigmented line, so I like to finish up all my pieces with that. And bringing out some of the dark around the flowers that I had lost from painting them. And that is pretty much all there is to it. Just add little highlights, little dots, little things here and there to add a little bit more interest to the piece.